Welcome back to They Did What? Your source for the internet's craziest, most entertaining stories where I go over them, analyze them, and most certainly make fun of them. Today, I'm going to do a story titled, Am I the A-hole for rejecting my dad's efforts to repair a relationship because he chose his wife over me? And a shout out to Jacob for sending this story. And guys, like the title said, this is about a young guy. He's only 21 years old, and long story short, he hasn't talked to his dad in 4 years. His dad remarried a few years after his mom passed away, and that moment he did, he put his new wife and her kids ahead of him. And it was an absolutely miserable existence and environment with that new family. And eventually this kid had enough of it and got out of there when he was like 17 years old. And of course, fast forward in time, the dad's trying to reconcile. And it got to the point it was that bad, he was out of there. But here's the thing. It isn't just bad enough that his dad was a complete SIMP to his new wife, and of course, was an awful father. This dad did something really evil, which you'll see as I go through the story. I'm not going to reveal it right now. And I don't blame this kid at all for wanting nothing to do with his old man. Let me go over here, guys, making the point that if there are people in life that really do you wrong, you don't owe it to them to take them back, have them back in your life. I don't want you walking around hating your heart because that messes you up and lets them win, but you don't have to forget and have them in your life. And simply, and for any fathers out there, you never put a new wife or her kids ahead of your own kids. You got to be kidding me here. So it starts off, says here, I'm 21 years old, and I lost my mom when I was still a baby, and my dad didn't date anyone until I was around 9 years old. Then he met his wife, Lindsay. She was a single mom to 2 kids. Here we go. Dad's white knighting. Both her kids had different fathers and weren't around. Shocker. Right there. Her oldest was 11 years old and her youngest was 6. Her youngest was special needs and medically complex. My dad and Lindsay rushed the relationship because she didn't have much free time and she wanted help and Dad was willing. Smack! Bonehead rushed into a relationship. Had to be the hero. Single mom, 2 different daddies, and a special needs child. Not the child's fault that he's special needs, but still, he's walking into a big mess. How about taking care of his son? Well, let's see how this goes. Says here, a really brief TLDR, my dad kept me in a bad situation. His wife's youngest took up a lot of money and space, and with all the extra needs, and her oldest was angry and violent and lashed out and drank and did drugs, I had curtained off space, not a bedroom with a door, and not a real bed. They move in, and he no longer has his bedroom. He gets a curtain like in a hospital room where his bed was. Oh, thanks, Dad. I went 6 weeks one time without seeing my dad while I lived there once. He told me she came first when I asked him to leave, and his marriage and happiness would always be first. Right there. Dad's telling you that my new wife comes first, even though you're my boy? No, oh hell no. I left at 17 years old and didn't look back, and now he wants to reconcile, but I said no because I deserve to be happy too. You're darn right. He says, I know it wasn't her son's fault. Her son was 6 years old at the time, but he was a lot of work, and I resented it from the start. He's going back in time now. Dad told me good people help family, and they don't pass up love and family just because it's more difficult or more work. And yet Dad here is passing up his son here to take care of a new family for a woman he just met. Something tells me that because the dad lost his wife, this young dude's mom, young, he now feels like he has to save another woman, save somebody else. Hence, he got involved with a woman with a special needs child, and she's got problems of her own. He's got to be the big hero to make up for what he couldn't do. Well, that's nice and all, but you don't hurt your own kids over that. And he told me that he deserved to be happy, and Lindsay made him happy, and that my mom was his first chance, and he lost her, so Lindsay was his second chance. He barely knows Lindsay, the new single mom wife. He told me I could benefit so much from being a caring brother to Lindsay's son, and we learn a lot about real life. Okay, Mr. Salesman, this young guy can be a good person, a lot about life without having to take on somebody else's new family here. Money was extremely tight, and the house had so much medical equipment and mobility stuff for Lindsay's son, I didn't even get an actual bedroom. I was shoved behind a curtain where the office had been before Dad and I moved in. He doesn't get his own bedroom. One before he did, and one before was just he and his dad. The timeline was like this. May In May, Dad and Lindsay meet. In September, they introduce all of us to each other. In November, we all move in together. February, Dad and Lindsay are married. Smack! Dad is a freaking moron. Okay, fine, he may be lonely, maybe kind of a struggle to raise a son on his own, but he's bringing even greater struggle by bringing these people in. He doesn't even know them. Now, I get nobody's perfect here, but come on here. And pretty soon you're going to find out the evil thing Dad does, and it's unforgivable. A few months after Dad and I moved, Lindsay's daughter, aka the oldest, started acting out. She smashed up some of her brother's medical equipment, she stole money, she started sneaking out late at night, and she got drunk a few times, and she started doing drugs. She pushed me around as if I was in her way. Well, push the bitch back. So you got a pissed off, out of control teenage girl, losing her mind, doing all these awful things. And it's bad enough. It's one thing if she's bothering this kid telling the story here. This obviously happened when he was younger. But her own younger brother, who's disabled and has problems. Again, this is what happens when you wait night. Well, there were nights I couldn't sleep until 1 or 2 in the morning because I could hear Lindsay and her daughter fighting. And the daughter would say she wished her half-brother would die and they could move on. Holy crap. I get kids are assholes and say a lot of things without thinking about it, but still, that's pretty darn awful. Lindsay would get hysterical about it, and her daughter would say he wasn't her real brother anyway, and he was just a burden. Ouch. Nice loyalty. I begged my dad to leave, and it would just be the two of us again. But he said we couldn't walk out. We committed. No, Dad. We did not commit. You committed. And even then, nothing's etched in stone. And by the way, guys, do you think this Lindsay character, the stepmom to this young dude telling the story, will be there to back the dad up if the situation was reversed? Hell no. We were more than just the two of us now, and I told him I didn't want any of them, and I hated how much life had changed. He told me life always changed, and I needed to get on top of my feelings and accept that he needed to be happy and deserved to save his marriage. Okay, Dad can be happy, but really, does Dad call this happiness? No, he's trying to be the hero, and I'm convinced it's because he couldn't save the mother the first time around. And now his son is begging him, Dad, I'm miserable, this is terrible. Do something about this. Nope, he won't do it. He told me his marriage was the most important thing and that it had to be to provide for me with stability. His marriage is the most important thing. More of these suckers. Even when Lindsay's daughter kicked me out of my own room, and he says that in air quotes, in bed, and would literally drag me by my hair or legs to get me out, Dad stayed. Again, I'd smack the shit out of that chick. So this kid has no peace in his life. It is turmoil, turmoil, turmoil. When I was 13 years old, I went 6 weeks without seeing my dad because Lindsay's son was in the hospital and stayed the whole time, which meant if Dad wasn't at work, he was with her. And all I got was a note telling me to go to a friend's house if there was no food. If there's no food, this is a major problem. This is when CPS could get involved for bad parenting here. And here's a question. Where's the rest of the family during all this? Aren't there any aunts and uncles, grandparents, the mom side of the family to help out, maybe take this kid in? Well, you're going to see. Those 6 weeks were hell because every time I saw Lindsay's daughter, she would curse at me and shove me around and made it so I really didn't feel okay outside of my curtain. Nothing got better. After I turned 15, Lindsay started asking me to help more with chores and errands as she expected me to be her little helper. And when I said no, Dad told me I didn't get to disrespect my new mom. That led to a fight, and I exploded and told him to F off because she would never be my mom, and nothing good came from them being married, and he needed to leave me alone. Now I'm going to stop right there. Now, even though this kid is in a very bad situation, he doesn't specifically say how Lindsay, the stepmom's treating him, but he just hates the new situation and how Dad has made him a second-class citizen. But still, as a young teenager, he should do chores. And so he doesn't get, in my opinion, a right, regardless of this, to act like that. But unless, of course, she's trying to make him, clean up after the special needs child, if you know what I mean, or wait on her kids, that's different. But if it's, please set the table, please take the dishes out of the dishwasher and put them in the cupboard, and he's freaking out about that, no, not cool. But I understand he's really messed up. It's been years he's dealing with this bullshit. Well, a few more fights happened around what I said because Lindsay heard and she was upset and said she loved me and her son loved me too, and they would hate to know I saw him as nothing but a burden too. Well, fast forward in time when I was 17, I just left one day. I didn't have a plan or a bunch of savings, but I just decided I couldn't do it anymore. I left Dad a note like he left me when I was 13 years old. He filed a missing persons report, and I had to tell the cops I was safe, but I refused to go back. I do not blame this young guy at all. Aside from him, that little outburst he had, I don't blame him at all. Why would he stay in this environment any longer than he has to? And I avoided getting sent back before my 18th birthday. Then I was just free. I didn't stay in touch, and I started a new life on my own. I even tracked down my mom's family, and now I live with my maternal grandparents who have searched for me for ages. But Dad moved and never let anyone know when we were going or where we were going. Hear that? Dad's freaking evil. Mom died, and I guess they had communication with her side of the family. Then he got remarried and disappeared. They moved, and he didn't tell them where he was going. And this young guy, for all these years, didn't get to see his grandparents, aunts and uncles, other family on her side, who could have easily probably taken him in, given how miserable he was. Nope, Dad kept him all to himself. That is unforgivable. What a freaking scumbag. Well, my dad got in touch with me a couple months ago, and I ignored him, and I kept ignoring him and his request to reconcile. F you, Dad, not happening. Not after all that, especially after you kept me from my grandparents. Then I replied a week ago to him saying how much I hated that we ended up here, and he wasn't even... Then I replied a week ago to him saying how much he hated that we ended up here, and he wasn't even sure if I blocked him. The guy says I actually had planned it but never did, blah, blah, blah. But he loved me and missed me, and more than anything, he wanted us to work on things. Nope, not happening, Dad. You don't deserve this. That's all nice. You want to reconcile, but look at everything you did to me. You made your new wife and her kids a top priority, while now making me my top priority. And what do you want to bet that maybe things aren't going so well with the stepmother now? Maybe she doesn't need him as much. Who knows what's going on here? And now he wants to reconcile. I just told him that he chose his wife over me, and he made a big chunk of my childhood hell as a result, and I want nothing more to do with him because I deserve to put my happiness first. Exactly, just the way the dad said he was going to put his happiness first. He replied a bunch since then, saying I should have never expected him to give up his wife for me, and we could work on this. That I need my dad and all kinds of crap. He actually seems kind of desperate and erratic about it, and like he's really afraid I won't give him a chance. Am I the a-hole for rejecting his efforts? No way, man. It'd be one thing if it was just, he got remarried and because he was lonely and made mistakes. But the fact that he kept you from your mom's side of the family, your grandparents, people that cared about you on purpose for his freaking selfish reasons, that's unforgivable. So you don't owe him shit. And he's saying that he's your dad, you need him. This young guy seems to be doing just fine on his own without him. So no way. So guys, life is short. Do not, when you're a kid, obviously there's only so much you can do when you're, not legally an adult. But when you're a legal adult, you have a choice to make up for it. I would not go back to the asshole. Fuck that. And I'm willing to bet you that if he did, guess what? He'd be roped right back into the drama again. Nope, he needs to move on. I just hope this young guy who doesn't make a mistake of rushing into a relationship himself and starting a family to make up for the crappy one he had. What do you think his mother, if the mother's probably turning in her grave seeing how the father's treated this young guy here. He had it bad enough that his mom died when he was a baby, and it was just he and his dad pulled this shit? No. And I've known people that have gotten... parents have died when they were younger, and the parents remarried, and they had the wicked stepmother or the asshole stepfather. And it's a very bad situation, but that parent doesn't want to be alone. It's ridiculous. So I say the hell with him, and good for this young guy for having this instinct. Now a few comments here. One guy says here, not the a-hole. On top of everything else, your father put you he took you from your maternal grandparents. They could have been a safe place for you when things were rough. When you were 13, you could have stayed with them while he was gone for 6 weeks. When your stepsister became abusive, he should have sent you to there for their safety. It's like he kept you around so he could have a piece of your mom around like a doll. Another one says here, he kept you around as basically extra help from how you're describing. He let his stepkids or eldest stepchild at least push you around and make fun of you and generally be cruel to you, let you sleep in a room with no bed, and still expected you to help out and do chores and all that stuff. when you weren't even being cared for in most basic of ways. Again, I think Child Protective Services could have a field day with some of the crap the dad was pulling. And I'm betting he only contacted you now because either Lindsay had a kid and you didn't find out and they want a free babysitter, or the youngest child in the house is having more issues and they need somebody to help out. Ding, ding, ding. Keep the house clean so they can care for the kid. Either way, none of this sounds like he actually wants to reconcile. It sounds like he wants to put you back under his thumb. Exactly. So I think this dad deserves an ass whooping. That's what I think. And I think if it gets too far, I think if the dad tracks him down and he sees him, it ain't going to end well for the dad. And one more, this guy is not the a-hole. You left and found peace and a better life. The fact that your dad has regrets now isn't on you to fix. He made his choice, and the wrong one, but actions have consequences, and his consequences are the loss of relationship with you. Amen. I don't want this guy going around hating his heart, but he can't get a relationship with his dad. The hell with him. It's over. And again, it meant one thing, it was just him getting with the new stepmother and making a lot of mistakes, but he deliberately kept this kid from his grandparents inside the family. Unforgivable. I guarantee this guy's wife's looking down from heaven and saying, F you, husband. So, there you go. All right, guys, that is it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. Let me know, guys, if you've been in a situation like this with an awful step-parent, or your dad or your mom put the other person ahead of you. I'd like to hear about in the comments section. How'd you deal with that? And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.